that you can't call your guitar collection complete until you own at least one guitar that's designed for shredding. Now, I'm not a shredder, I've never been a shredder, but I know that when it comes to shredding, one name stands above the rest, and that's Mr. Steve Vai. When I think of shredding, I automatically think of Steve. When I think of Steve, I automatically think of his guitar, the Jem by Ibanez. This model was designed well over 25 years ago and has become one of the best selling and longest selling models for Ibanez. Now that is something to be proud of. Now, Ibanez has made tons of models, and I mean, if you think about it, I think that most shredders tend to lean towards Ibanez. Not to say that there's not other brands that you can use, but Ibanez has been kind of the industry standard when it comes to designing shredder guitars. Kind of like a sports car. And the Jem is no different. It has features that were never seen on other guitars before. Things like the monkey grip, you know. Is it practical? Sure, if you want to swing your guitar around. You know, is it necessary? No, but it's cool. Who doesn't want to have a monkey grip on their guitar? So, you know, being a fan of Steve Vai, you know, I've always wanted to eventually own a Jem. Unfortunately, as we all know, signature models, when they are produced by the companies, tend to be very expensive. It's not uncommon for signature models to cost 10 times more than a similar model guitar. And the Jem is no different. I think the Jem, the actual original Jem, is probably around $4,000 today. Well above what I want to spend for an Ibanez guitar. But Ibanez, knowing the popularity of this particular guitar, was smart enough to release a low-cost junior version, which is made in Indonesia. Now, this model today, I think, is about $700 in Canada. Could be less in the United States, I'm not really sure. And for $700, I thought that was a relatively good price. Of course, I tend not to buy guitars new because I don't like to pay premium. And I believe you can find most any guitar used at practically showroom condition, you know, just like this one here. I ended up buying this guitar for about $500, but it was technically brand new. It still had the tags on it. It still had the protective plastic on it. The gentleman who bought it obviously was not a shredder. He wanted to try it. He had other guitars. He ended up selling it because, for whatever reason, he couldn't justify keeping it. Now, I wanted to take a moment today and go over this guitar. For those of you that have seen it or considering it or always wanted to own a Jem, and I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, positive points and the negative points on this guitar to give you a better understanding of what it is that you're buying. Now, obviously, I'm going to say this right up front, this is not going to be a sound test. If you're looking for sound samples, there's plenty on the internet already. What I want to offer you here is some sound advice and some detailed information about this guitar. So if you're looking for that, stay tuned. If you're not, please look at one of the other videos that's available. I'm sure you'll find plenty. So let's get started and talk about what you're getting when you buy this type of Ibanez. Now, I've always been a fan of Ibanez. I think they make really great guitars. Well, my first guitar that I ever purchased was an Ibanez Roadstar 2, which was many, many years ago. I still see them floating around once in a while, which, you know, basically says something if you can still find guitars that are probably 30 years old floating around that are not necessarily collector's items, you know, and were kind of budget guitars at the time anyway. So when I looked at this guitar, I definitely liked what I saw. All the features are there. You know, you're getting the standard monkey grip, you're getting the Vine of Life inlays, you're getting the beautiful white paint job, you're getting the floating tremolo, etc., etc., the humbucker single coil combination. You're getting everything that the original had. But of course, there's going to be cost-cutting measures that are going to be built into this version as opposed to the original. And I'll go through that with you and tell you what they are. So let's start off by looking at the body of the guitar. The body of the guitar hasn't changed. The thickness is the same. The paint job is the same. The contours are the same. The input in the back is the same. The cavities in the back are the same. Everything is pretty much the same. The difference with this guitar is that obviously the woods will not necessarily be the same. But the thing that was surprising to me was that I was expecting the guitar body to be made of basswood. Now, why basswood? Because oftentimes basswood is used instead of more expensive types of woods. But in this particular case, according to the information that I've read on the Ibanez website, they're actually using a mahogany body, which is actually surprising to me. Mahogany is, you know, renowned for being used in guitars. Companies such as Gibson have been using mahogany for a very long time, and I was surprised to learn that it's actually being used here. Now, that's not to say that basswood is bad. Basswood is not bad. It's very resonant. There's a lot of companies that make very high-end guitars that are not cheap that use basswood as well. So it's a relatively resonant wood as well. But I was just kind of not expecting to hear that there's mahogany in here. Now, if you look at the actual standard features, we're going to look at the tremolo. The tremolo on this guitar is not the same as the higher end Jem. This is where some of the cost-cutting measures come into play. It's basically an Ibanez labeled Floyd Rose copy. Very nicely done in terms of the finish. It's not pitted and doesn't look like it's cheaper metal that you sometimes see on lower end guitars. It holds sustain relatively well. I've used it now for a while and I don't have any tuning stability issues with this. Obviously, I think the original one that's on the Jem is higher quality. It's going to give you more finer tuning capabilities. It's probably going to stay in tune much better. You can always swap it out and install one of the originals. You can find them on eBay. I think the originals will probably cost you a couple $100 if you want to go that route. But you don't have to. I mean, let's not forget, this is a kind of a budget version of the Jem. So if you're a professional guitarist and you do need that tuning stability, you can definitely modify the guitar. That's one of the really beautiful aspects of buying a less expensive version of a guitar. You don't have to worry about modifying it. So if it's a question of you want to just try something different, you can. And it's not going to be like you're ruining a $4,000 guitar. But this really, I mean, these types of mods are very common. A lot of people tend to do that. They tend to swap out the bridge or the pickups or whatnot. If you feel that you want to do that, it's a very easy mod to do. Now, so the bridge is going to be one of the areas where they're going to cut costs. Obviously, the electronics is very commonly one of the areas where they're going to cut costs. You see this all the time. Now, there's a big difference between cutting costs and giving you crap. Now, I don't think that Ibanez has offered crap in the electronics on this guitar. I think the electronics on this guitar are well worth the money you're paying. In other words, I don't think you're being shortchanged. I think the pickups work very well. Again, pickups are very subjective. There's a lot of nuances that come into play when you're considering pickups or evaluating pickups. Everybody has a slightly different sound that they're looking for in their ear. So you will have to find what works best for you. But these, to me, for a shredding type guitar, work very well. They're punchy. They're relatively clear. Sometimes you have pickups that suffer from being too aggressive, too bright, or too buzzy. These don't do that. So if they're adjusted properly at the right height, you have a very nice sounding set of pickups in here. The combination of humbuckers and single coil in the middle, some people like that, some people don't. Some people actually complain that the center pickup actually, it gets in the way when you're picking. If you're not used to that, I can see how that can be a problem. Being a Strat player myself, I'm kind of used to having the middle pickup there, but obviously you have less room in between for picking, so you got to be careful and you have to kind of get used to it. I like the fact that the Floyd is kind of countersunk a little bit, so it's not actually in the way as much as some other guitars. And also having the lion claw, I think they call it back here, which is actually a root that they put in there so that you can pull up on the Floyd as well as dive bomb, gives you a lot of flexibility. Of course, it also comes with drawbacks. When the bridge is not flush with the body, you don't have anything acting as a stop. So if you're doing things that with your tremolo, if you're doing things and you expect it to kind of come back to zero, you will not have that with this guitar. The actual tremolo is always floating, so it needs to be adjusted properly, or you may have some issues with it. But I find that it's very stable, and I haven't had those problems, and I do like the fact that you have the ability to dive bomb and also pull up. One of the things though that I do have to say is, because you do have a root there, if you want to use something like the D-Tuna that is made popular by Eddie Van Halen, which allows you to install a little device on the low E string which can be popped out so that you can take the low E string and bring it down to D, so if you're doing any drop D playing, the problem with that is because it extends past the little Allen key knob here, you can actually chip your finish if it extends too far and you pull up on your bridge. So you have to be aware of that. You might have an issue with that. It might not be compatible. You have to try it out. I haven't tried it on this guitar, but I just wanted to point that out. And the other thing is the type of electronics for the pots and the switches. Now, I know that they're not going to be the highest end quality of components that you can buy, but the switch for the pickups is very smooth. It doesn't feel bad. I don't feel like I need to replace it right now. The switches on the knobs on the tone and treble are very smooth, and for the time being don't cause me any problems, so I won't change them. But eventually, I mean, they all will eventually fail, and you will have to change them, and at that point it costs you a couple of bucks to upgrade them if you need to. You know, so it's not the end of the world for me. I tend to concentrate on things that I know that I can't change. And one of the most important things on a guitar when you consider spending money on buying a new guitar is always the neck. I can't stress that enough. If the neck is not comfortable, you will not keep that guitar. It will be sold for sure. And you know, yes, you can change the neck on these guitars because they're bolt-on. They're easy to do. But when you're buying a guitar like this, that is, you know, essentially a Jem, you're not going to want to change out the neck and put something else that is not Jem related, doesn't have the, you know, the inlays and whatnot. It's going to look out of place. So you want to consider that and make sure that you do like the neck on the guitars. You can always put a real Jem neck on there if you're lucky enough to find a used one floating around on eBay or something like that, which is good, but you're going to pay a lot of money. You probably will pay more than the guitar's worth. So I don't know if it's worthwhile to do, but if you're really crazy about it and you do want to have an original neck, that's one way of doing it. Now the neck, since we're talking about the neck, let's talk about the quality of the woods and the quality of the neck itself. The neck is a very thin neck, and that is synonymous with, you know, Ibanez guitars and shredding guitars and wizard necks. Now the difference between this neck and the original neck, if you look at the back of it, there's no skunk stripe in the back. The original does have a different color stripe of wood in the middle there, which, you know, is mostly a design feature and allows for the installation of the truss rod and whatnot. Does it make a huge difference? To me, it doesn't. There might be people that are sticklers and would have preferred to have the skunk stripe there. To me, it doesn't make that much of a difference. The actual neck feels wonderful. It's very easy to play. It's very thin. Obviously, if you're used to a thicker neck, you might find it a little bit odd at first, but you know, you have to expect a thin neck on these type of guitars. To me, these guitars are like sports cars, and they're made to be played fast. And you know, having a thin neck will allow you to play quicker. The neck is comfortable in terms of width. It's not too narrow. I have big hands, and I like to have a neck that's going to be comfortable to chord and not feel like I have to squeeze my fingers in there. This neck does not give me that feeling. It's very comfortable to play. And the thickness of the rosewood slab, if you can look here, is pretty thick. It's thicker than you would expect. I've seen some pretty thin ones. This one's nice and thick. I like that. The color of the rosewood is nice and dark, and it also has a very nice grain to it. Very, very nice. Nothing to complain about there. The inlays are wonderful. They stand true to the original Vine of Life inlay on the original Jem, and it does go all the way down. Ibanez did have a version, a 777 version, which actually I think the Vine of Life ended about there, and then the rest of the frets were scalloped. There's no scalloping on this neck. You know, if that's something you want to do, that's going to be a mod that you're going to have to do yourself. The Vine of Life inlays are not, I believe it's some sort of a plastic. I don't think it's real mother of pearl, but it is nicely done. There's not any kind of gap in the inlays that I can see with some you know, ugly filler. It's pretty well done, as you can see there. Now the neck itself has tuners that are I guess standard Ibanez tuners. It's a nice dark chrome, similar to what you see on the bridge here. The finish is quite nice. Now they're not locking, and obviously you don't really need locking tuners on this type of a guitar because the nut here acts as the lock, so you don't have to have any locking mechanism here. I think that would be overkill. And the actual locking mechanism does stay in place nicely. I've played this guitar in live situations already, and it's very stable. Now the only thing that I'm going to say is that I live in Canada, and there is quite a bit more variation in temperature in Canada. And I did notice in the winter time when I would go into a rehearsal studio and it would be colder outside, the neck would take a little bit of time to get to adjust to the temperature inside, and during that time you would maybe find that it needs to be adjusted in terms of tuning a little bit more often. Now that's not to say that it's because of an inferior guitar. I've had a Music Man Access, which is worth well over $2,500. Not a low-end guitar at all that had exactly the same issue, maybe even a little bit worse. You know, so it just means that the neck is a little bit more sensitive to the climate and will tend to be affected by the heat, the cold, or the humidity a little bit more. But that's standard. I mean, wood is a very dynamic material that will absorb water and humidity and whatnot, and will change over time. So you have to be aware of that. So that's pretty much what I have to say about the neck. Now, going back to the body, obviously, you know, the monkey grip is kind of a hallmark of the Jem. The line claw, also a hallmark of the Jem. Now the cuts on the horns here are quite deep, and as you can see, they're designed so that you could get to the high registry very easy. So much so that I can actually go past the first pickup completely, you know? So you have no problem playing all the way to the last fret here. Very, very easy. And what makes it actually easier is the heel here, that it's rounded, so that it's very comfortable in the palm of your hand and allows you to go even further up the neck, and you don't have any angles that are in your way. Very nice design, and that's why I guess they've been around for so long. The input jack is the same as the original, which is in the back and is designed to be put in at an angle, and it basically allows the jack to not be in your way. A lot of times people will wrap it around the strap so that it's not in the way, and this is another way of doing that. So another nice feature. The back of the guitar has the same contour cuts as the original. It's got a little plate here so you can access the electronics. It's got the regular plate in the back so you can access the springs of the tremolo system. One thing I want to say about this cover is that I didn't have time to take it off. Excuse me, I didn't have time to take it off, but there's no fancy locking mechanism in here. Some Ibanez guitars will give you the ability to have a hardtail. Ibanez Guitars has done a lot of advancements on their tuning systems and bridge systems, and there's a lot of very fancy technology that have found their way on Ibanez guitars over the years. But this guitar is pretty straightforward. There's nothing fancy in there. Again, if you want to do that and you need that kind of stability, you can definitely modify the guitar and add it. It's not a hard thing to do. And that's one of the great things about having a less expensive version like this. You don't have to be afraid of jeopardizing the value of the guitar when making those mods. Now, Steve Vai also has a couple of switches that he has installed on his guitar. I guess his tech has done that. And basically what it does is it gives you more sustain. There are probably some active electronics in there. Again, if you want to modify it, you can. You can add that and make it exactly the same. Not a big deal. So the guitar is a great modding platform for many different things that you can do, and you know, it's something that in my eyes is a plus with this guitar. Now, a couple of comments that I've read before I bought this guitar. I obviously do some research, do my due diligence to see what are the pros and cons on the guitar. Some of the comments that I found, I guess they were kind of maybe the first release of this particular model. Some people claim that, you know, the paint job is poor and that there's, you know, paint that's poorly applied, and you can see that in the screw holes or the monkey grip. Now I want to give you a look at that because I don't see that at all. And if you look at the screw holes in the back of this guitar, I mean, it's pretty much flawless. There's no issue there. There's no paint, there's no chips, there's no orange peel. Same goes for the monkey grip. Some people claim that, you know, the inside portion of the monkey grip was not finished properly, or, you know, that there's issues there. I'm going to show you that that's not the case with this guitar. The guitar finish is flawless. There's no issues, there's no blemishes, there's nothing that I can see on this guitar that would make me feel that the quality control or the manufacturing process on this guitar was inferior. Actually, I don't feel that at all. So I think Ibanez is offering you a great model if you really like to have that Steve Vai look. If you're a Steve Vai fanboy and you want to play like Steve Vai, or maybe you already can, this is a great guitar that you can actually enjoy and not spend too much money on. What else do I have to say about this guitar? It seems like everything that I've mentioned so far is a positive. Now there is one thing that does bother me about this guitar. Excuse me, and I'll tell you what that is. If you haven't already seen it, if you look at the body, the pick guard on this guitar is white, solid white. Now, I know that the original pick guard on the Ibanez Jem is not solid white. It's actually like it looks like a mother of pearl. It's a little bit of a cream color. This pick guard seems too white. if you look at it, it doesn't really blend well with the color of the guitar. It's kind of it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb to me, and maybe I'm just being picky. I mean, after a while you might not notice it anymore and it might not be a big issue, but I would have preferred if they would have stayed true to the original and given you the same type of pickguard. How much more could that have cost them to do? Now, eventually I might change that if I can find one that fits, or if you know a place that I can actually find one that fits, please leave me a comment below and let me know where that is. I'd love to maybe swap that out. The problem is I'm afraid that maybe the pickup holes, sizes, or the drill locations for the screws might not line up, and there might be some issues. So I'm not really sure if I'm going to go to the trouble of doing that. I might just leave well enough alone and live with it, but it's just something that I did want to mention. Also, at the price point that you're paying this guitar, it does not come with a case. Obviously, the real Jem comes with a very fancy Ibanez case, molded and whatnot. I think this one comes with a a regular cheap fabric case, not a case but a bag, which I don't tend to use with any of my guitars. I usually just take them and keep them, and when I sell a guitar I'll just include it with the sale, so that somebody doesn't have to walk down the street with a guitar in their hands. But I don't feel that those cases, those bags offer enough protection for an investment. I don't like to use them. Okay, to each his own, but that's just my opinion, and I'm sticking with it. So overall, I feel that this guitar is a really great buy. If you can buy one used, all the better. I don't think you'll be disappointed with this. If you like the Ibanez styling and you want something bold and different, and you're not afraid to walk around with a Steve Vai guitar because you feel that somebody's going to look at you and say, okay, I want to hear those Steve Vai licks, go ahead and play. If you're not worried about that happening, then definitely it's a great guitar. I'm very happy with it, and so far I've been enjoying playing this guitar quite a bit, and I don't have any issues in terms of the quality of the workmanship. The frets, I forgot to mention, are quite large. I guess they're medium jumbos, which also allow you to play quite flawlessly and easily and effortlessly. And one thing that I do enjoy about this guitar as opposed to my other guitars is the scale length of the Ibanez guitars is longer than other guitars that I own, and because of that I feel that the string length makes it a lot easier to play. Bending is easy, there's a lot more string to work with, so there's definitely a different feel there as opposed to playing, say, a Les Paul or a shorter scale length guitar. So definitely Ibanez shredder guitars do have a place in your guitar collection, and if you're like me and you do want to own at least one, this to me is a good place to start. Ibanez has been producing shredder guitars for a long time. They do have some other really great quality guitars that you definitely want to check out. I'm not saying that this is the best version that Ibanez offers. It's not, but if you're looking for a Steve Vai Jem copy, this is a good place to start. One thing that I do want to mention in closing about the guitar. When you're buying this guitar, there's a lot of fakes floating around, especially on eBay. I've seen a lot of these guitars that claim to be real guitars made by Ibanez, which they are not. And they're not the same quality at all. There's not the same workmanship at all. Please be aware, when you're buying a guitar, make sure that it is an original Ibanez version. That's probably one of the reasons why Ibanez actually released this version, is to cut out all the fakes that are being produced out there. They saw that there was so many being sold, and there was actually for sure a demand because people were buying them, that they were better off making their own version and making sure that the quality was there and that you don't end up with a cheap copy and then think that Ibanez is making garbage when it's actually not even Ibanez producing them. So please be aware of that. Now, I've been talking here for quite a bit, so I'm going to just close and say that I really appreciate everyone's support. I like to hear your comments. If there's something that I forgot to mention about this guitar that you would like to know, please go ahead and leave your comments below. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, please do. I really appreciate your subscriptions, and I'm very, very happy to see the number of subscribers constantly go up. That's a great sign. I've been a little bit slow in producing videos lately because I've been busy with other projects, but I guarantee you that there will be other great video reviews coming your way. And please go ahead and watch my channel for those great videos. There'll be a lot more being uploaded this week. One last thing, I will also take the time to produce a couple of videos where I will take your comments and basically answer them. There's a lot of videos that I've been producing and putting online, and there's a lot of great comments out there, and sometimes I don't have the ability to answer all the comments because it just takes too much time. So I'll make a video specifically for that and answer all of your questions. So stay tuned for those great videos, and if there's anything specifically that you would like me to review, please let me know. If I can, I'll be happy to oblige. So stay tuned and have a great day.